Hey guys, welcome to today's webinar. We're excited to be here, as we always are. We have a pretty cool session set up today. We're going to continue down the line of talking about influencers, how to work with them, how to partner with them. Today's session is pretty darn cool. We're going to talk to Taylor about influencers, how to work with influencers, and then in particular, Taylor has some pretty cool expertise in YouTube, which we're going to dive right into. YouTube and video is a very big thing in this world, and so it's important to get that stuff and get it right. So I have Taylor Click here from IVVI or IV, which I said I would get wrong, but I didn't get wrong. So Taylor actually coached me through that because as you guys know, as you've been watching, I always get the names wrong, but I didn't this time. So I have Taylor here, and you are a graduate of the Ontario College of Design.
Yes.
And you also have from Parsons as well. Is that the other College of Design?
You did your research.
I did. I tried to. So she's got some pretty amazing experience, and she also runs. You're the founder of IVVI, and has some pretty serious clients that you work with, right? So she's got some. We warmed up here already, and so I already know that she's got a ton of information. We had this really rich discussion before, which we're going to try and do on camera for you, but some just chock full of lots of stuff that you guys are going to need. So I'm going to stop talking. Would you mind introducing yourself to everybody?
Yeah. So my name is Taylor Click, and I'm the founder of Ivy, CEO. And Ivy is really just about influencer and viral video insights. So we help top brands navigate the complex world of influencers through data and predictive technologies, and really dive down into getting a strong ROI and making your campaign successful.
Got it. And tell us, can you give us a sample of maybe a few of the very big brands? You had some really recognized ones that you were talking about.
Yeah, so we work with big brands like Universal Studios, Samsung, Musical.ly, LiveMe, a bunch of agency partnerships like Sid Lee. So we love our clients. They're some of the most innovative people, and they're looking to really, capitalize in this digital space and improve their strategies.
So we know a couple of those brands.
Yeah, a few of them.
Just a few.
They're
of them.
small. Yeah.
That's amazing. So let's get into it. Let's talk a little bit about. So we talk a lot here at Hubba about community connections and commerce, and that's a really big thing for us because. As a community, as brands, retailers, and influencers, you all need each other to grow. And so connecting to each other, being able to build stories that work together, really build commerce. That's how it works, right? So community, you find each other, you talk to each other, you amplify each other's messages as connections, and then you grow in community. You have a very similar kind of story about amplifying and I've got it wrong, but it's like amplify something and then distribution, right? Like you've got a 3-stage thing you do.
Yeah, so discover, track, and create.
Sorry, yes.
Yeah.
I completely see. I got it wrong somewhere else.
But amplification is in there too. It's all about amplification.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, got it.
Yeah.
And so, what in influencer marketing is so big about amplification and being able to discover?
Yeah. So marketing has really taken a shift in the last little bit. It's been maybe about 5 years, but companies are really starting to jump on it and really see a big impact. So traditional advertising like TV commercials, billboards, the other forms, publications, actually are getting, less of a pull from traditional marketing. So for instance, influencer marketing can actually get 60% more of a conversion because of its authenticity. It's essentially a consumer speaking to a consumer, right? So an influencer will only rep a brand normally if they're credible and you've done your research, if they actually like the product. So a lot of their fans, subscribers, followers actually, trust that person much more than you would get from your standard form of advertising.
Got it.
Which is really exciting spot to be in. 60% more conversion. It's huge.
That's amazing. So what's really neat is I think in the last 5 years, you've seen it, I've seen it, and I think if you're a Hubba brand, you may not be exposed to this, but big brands, like some of the ones that Taylor's talked about before, but not specific to them, really just big brands in general, have done traditional media for a very long time, right? So it's a serious paradigm shift, right? Because these guys are now learning to completely talk to a consumer in a totally different way.
Yeah. And the consumers now have a voice, right? Which is what kind of flipped everything. The consumers now, you know, we saw what happened with certain brands. I'm not sure if I can say the name. But, you know, there's been some influencers and brand partnerships where there's been backlash. And the consumer, you know, the ad has been taken down. So it's really important that when you are looking into all of these spaces that you are doing your research, there's data behind all of it. But if you actually do it properly, it's quite a magnificent form of marketing.
It's pretty cool. We love watching it. So let's talk about that for a second, because I think that's key to this whole thing is doing your research in the right places, right?
Yes.
Like, so the old world was very much a let's just go out and figure out what everybody wants. But there's a real shift there, right? Like, it's a really subtle shift, but it's remarkable, right? So if you start with a consumer and work out, right? Like, I think that's where a lot of your analytics come into play, as you dive right into the consumer.
Absolutely. Yeah, so a lot of companies know they need to be in this space. A, they might not know how. B, there's too many influencers or creators to actually keep up with. And then C, there's 4.9 billion videos that are viewed on YouTube every single day. How do you actually get your videos to stand out? How do you get your commercials, your product to actually make an impact in that world? So it is a complex area. So even though you know you need to be there and you can get strong conversion, having the right tools to guide along the way is really key. You know, so we have a technology that's a predictive technology where we're able to predict rising talent. So instead of working with 1 to 2 of the top influencers, we actually help our clients navigate the space of 5 to 20 or 50, depending on what the campaign is, and really extend their reach for their budgets. So it's really important to find the right tools, and you'll actually save more money in optimizing your budgets if you have the right technology behind.
Got it. And so let's go from there and jump right in, because you guys do a lot of work on YouTube. That's kind of your area of expertise. Why YouTube? Why not Instagram or Facebook? Those are important too, but why YouTube? Why have you zeroed in on that?
Yeah, so a lot of our brands want to work with all the other platforms, and we encourage it. There are other forms of amplification. We actually find our influencers through YouTube. A few reasons, because then our technology likes to look at, you know, how long someone's watched a video. Are the users actually engaged, right? YouTube counts a view after 30 seconds, whereas Facebook or Instagram is 3 seconds. Okay. So in our opinion, that's just a scroll through the news feed. Got it. Right? It's not necessarily an engaged view per se, especially if you're trying to sell a product. So as we're focused on ROI and conversion, those kind of things are very important. So we say find your influencer through YouTube, and then you can amplify across their platforms, Snapchat, Facebook, Instagram, all of those. Snapchat's also in competition a little bit more with Instagram,
for sure.
But just navigating those markets and seeing what works best.
Yeah.
But YouTube has always been the strongest one for us.
So that's really neat, right? Because 30 seconds of engagement is literally worth its weight in gold, right? Because you really can. So so if you guys didn't, I mean, the biggest thing about the 3 second is that it's scrolling. You actually can't guarantee that they ever looked at it past it making it from the top to the bottom or the bottom to the top, depending on which way you're going, right?
Yeah. And
sorry, go ahead.
And if you ever, you know, watch your friends scroll through something like Instagram, a lot of the time they're going scroll, and they're hardly even looking at it. So to catch a really subtle, authentic product within that influencer campaign, you know, a lot of the time it's missed. So we actually started in Instagram, and then we pivoted to more of diving into the YouTube space.
Huh. And it's interesting because do you work with clients on what kind of content should be important in the first 30 seconds versus after that? Because I feel like
definitely
that 30 seconds is
Yeah.
so valuable, right?
Yeah,
Like,
so we have two components to our business. So we have the influencer strategies and the viral video insights. So
Okay.
you're touching on the second
Okay.
component, which is all about, what are the trends? For instance, if you look at something like the ALS Ice Bucket Challenge, we
Yeah.
all know that as a
Yeah.
viral movement.
Yeah.
It's very simple to the equation. You have the first little bit where it's a call to action. So you're talking about the cause or whatnot. You're doing the challenge, which is the second component. And the third component is you're nominating someone. Short, sweet, and very concise. And there is a formula to virality. So we work with our companies on those
Okay.
content strategies as well.
I love it. Okay. So I'm gonna get distracted because I could probably talk about this all day.
Same.
But let's zero back in on influencers. Let's talk about influencers and picking the right influencers. So there's
Right.
obviously some very large, lots and lots of follower, type of influencers, whether that's a Kim Kardashian, a Beyonce, anyone like that, which I think we'd all love to have, but I don't think any of us can afford that.
Yeah.
And then there's like really, really tiny guys. And so how do you help, in your opinion, do you have a sense of who is most effective or how you pick who is most effective for your business? That's probably one of the number one questions, right, for brands.
Yeah,
So,
that's such a good question. So it's not necessarily about who you know or who you've heard of is who you should work with,
Okay.
right? And that's what a lot of brands think. They say, oh, I want to go with even, the traditional celebrity, which is, they're very expensive.
Yeah.
Even the top of YouTube, the top influencers are quite expensive. And if you have the budgets to afford it, wonderful, that's great. But if you can actually, narrow in on your niche audience, that's where the money is actually going to come back to you.
Okay.
So how we do that, our technology is sorting through all of YouTube, and we say, okay, let's say we're doing a campaign on food. You can sort all of YouTube from food, health, fitness, nutrition, cooking, and really narrow into where your audience are sitting, where they're sitting and watching, and then you can find your influencer through that. So it's not necessarily even about demographics. We like to look into psychographics. So it's about the interest of that person.
Got it.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it totally does, right?
Yeah.
So for brands, if you're not working with Taylor, you probably should. And if you're not, I mean, it speaks a lot to analytics and what you need to do to be able to find the people that you want, right?
Yeah.
Because it really is. It's not enough to run some numbers or see some statistics anymore. You really need to almost follow these guys down the rabbit hole of what do they love, how long do they watch for, like all that kind of stuff. Right?
Exactly. We like to give the example of, let's say you have two 16-year-old girls growing up in the same region, similar upbringing, and they have, one girl is into makeup and the other girl's into cars. I was the girl that was into cars. And, marketing your makeup product to the person that's into cars just because they're under the demographic doesn't necessarily make sense, right?
Yeah.
So really that interest is the most important thing.
We talked about this beforehand.
Yeah.
How difficult is the conversation? Like, how much bridging do you have to do? Because this is new space, it's maybe 5 years-ish old. And we're probably, the first 3 years were pretty wild west, right?
Yeah.
And so how difficult is it for brands to understand what and how to talk to an influencer, and then how articulate are influencers getting about being able to talk to brands? Do you know what I mean? Like that relationship of being able to figure out how they fit together.
Well, I'll definitely say it's a new area, and this is exactly where our company exists. So, we were talking beforehand, we had originally launched a technology, and that's where, our extension was. And we realized we had to add in a consulting and education side. Now we run workshops and doing a lot of talks and education around the space because it is just such a new area. And even the top brands, we've consulted with, over hundreds of brands, of the top brands, and it's very always surprising, even the best of the best, how much you can really add in 5 different tips and tricks or tactics that can really optimize their influencer campaign and get them a way stronger conversion than what they've already tried. So it's a really fun space to be the thought leader, educating big brands and then seeing big impacts. So I'll give you an example. Universal Studios is launching Despicable Me 3. We help them find an influencer that is quickly rising, but not necessarily the biggest. So just under 2 million subscribers on YouTube. And with the launch of this campaign, right now it's sitting at 30 million views in 3 weeks. And that's way bigger than that influencer had ever had before.
30 million.
30 million. That's countries put together.
I'm a little amazed by the 30 million hit still. But I do want to, I think that's a neat place to stop, right? Because what you said before the 30 million, we all heard 30 million, was that you used an influencer who was not necessarily that big at, was it 2 million
And
followers?
just under 2.
Just under 2 million,
1.8.
sorry. Just under 1.8
Yeah.
million. So I think at this point, brands are probably going to go, wait, what? Like, is that small? Is that large?
Yeah.
Let's talk about that for a second, right? Because we talked about this off camera.
Yeah.
That size is a really relative thing, right? And you had a different take on... We talk here a lot about small, medium, large, but we're fairly definitive about it. But you have a different take on that, and I think these guys would want to know about that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So generally, we like to say working in the sweet spot is mid-tier.
Okay.
But mid-tier, you're right, can range from, so depending on how big the brand is, how big the budget is, the campaign, there's so many variables, it can really range. So when we say mid-tier, it could be 100,000 subscribers to around 2 million.
Okay.
But it's just dependent on that budget.
Okay.
Really, you can maximize, so 300,000 subscribers to 1 million is the average mid-tier. And we like to say those areas because after 2 million, they're very expensive. And then under 2 million, it's a good area to be in if you're finding the right people and they have a good community. But to guarantee a certain amount of views is a little bit more difficult, and then the ROI is really where our focus is. So,
got it. And that changes too, right? So, like I guess in that sweet spot too is how big they are, but also what tactic you want out of it. So,
exactly.
If you're a brand and you need brand exposure, like 2 million might be right? But if you're unboxing, you're trying to push a new line extension, might be a lot smaller,
Absolutely.
right? In terms of what you want to drive.
And then also goes, where's your consumers actually sitting? Are they local audiences? Because then it could be a lower tier
right.
influencer. So it's just a matter of, like, we normally look at North America.
Okay.
Or Canada.
Okay.
So.
So that's a question we get a lot too, is if I'm, like, let's say I'm a Hubba's based in Toronto. So let's say I'm a Toronto-based brand, and I would like to break into randomly the California market. Is this a good way to be able to help you build some of that groundswell so that you're able to build momentum in that market? Like, do you see that happening with brands as well?
Definitely. So it's about finding, the influencers that are from those regions. If you're looking for geolocation, what we like to say is, don't necessarily just stick online. You can actually, some of the most successful campaigns that we've seen are actually an experience with the influencer there in person, drawing their audience and their fans in.
Yeah.
So when you look at companies like an Adidas, when they're launching shoes in specific regions or stores, they'll get the influencer to do a shout out and say, I'm going to be here at this store at this time, doing a signing, come meet me. And they have lineups around the block, and their biggest problem was that they, had to manage those lines, and so they created an app. So that's how successul their influencer campaigns are. Yeah. So it's about finding them, the influencer within that region, and can pull a crowd within to a place.
Got it. Yeah. Okay, and then I'm gonna lead that because part of doing all that work is getting a sense of ROI and like what's so much data, so much, now, like we've said to these guys, follow them down the rabbit hole, figure out what they love, what their viewers are looking at. What in ROI do you worry about? Like, what are kind of broad strokes things that brands should be thinking about and not thinking about. And,
Definitely.
Yeah.
So I've talked about views, which is just the general
Mm-hmm.
idea of, engagement, but real engagement is where we like to focus because that's where you're going to get a stronger ROI.
Okay.
So how good is their commenting? What are their fans saying about the comments? So we
Okay.
bring in all that information
Okay.
and have our clients read through some of that stuff because it's really important. How many likes versus dislikes? Looking into that data to know how your brand's actually going to be positioned alongside that influencer is really key. So strongest engagement can get you the best ROI. So it's just about that. And then also there's things like, how many views per video. So don't look at the overall average amount of views or whatnot. It's actually, if you put out one video with this influencer, how many views are going to get on average? Look at their, lowest amount of views per video and then look at their highest. You can kind of gauge it and really understand how many eyeballs you're going to get on your product.
Got it.
And there's a few things that you can do to help you with tracking the ROI. So our technology, we have a hashtag system.
Okay.
So we can track everything that's said across, if you create a hashtag across YouTube, which is
Fantastic.
big because
Yeah.
a lot of brands before this technology could only track what they've paid for.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah,
You think about it, Facebook ads, which are also great for amplifying your influencer campaign. But you can track that on the insights, but if you're doing an influencer marketing, you don't necessarily have those insights, or you're at the mercy of the influencer to give them to you,
Got it.
which can
Yeah.
be tedious, time consuming, and
Yeah.
not always
Accurate.
done at the right time.
Yeah.
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 And so, having certain systems to be able to track that is really important. The last thing I'm going to say on that, have things like tracking links, promo codes, give the influencer promo codes so that they can say, oh, you get a discount at this place if you're using my name. So you can really track all of that stuff in many different ways.
Got it. Wow, that's a lot.
Yeah.
That's a lot. That's really great.
ROI is our thing.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. No, it's big, right? I mean,
It's the most important thing,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Driving awareness is great, and that's,
Yeah.
a lot of the time what Instagram does a good job of.
Yeah.
But really, YouTube can get you that, those people buying.
Yeah.
Right?
I think that's the neatest part about YouTube too, is the misconception. I think with all social media, that question of, oh, what can I get back for what I spend, is, the industry views that as, well, it's like media spend, right? So I put something on TV, how do I actually measure it?
Right.
But with YouTube, it's actually not that, right? It's
Yeah.
exactly the opposite. Is you really can follow it. You actually get a number out of that you can
Yes,
figure out.
exactly. And that's what's the biggest
yeah.
difference is, no one should say that you can't track ROI nowadays.
Yeah.
There's a few different scenarios, like let's say you're selling a ticket for an event and they go and buy it at the door. There's a few things like that are, different scenarios, but generally if you have a product, you can track all of it.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. Okay.
The beauty of innovation.
It's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're almost at the end.
Yes.
I want to ask you if you've got some tips for the guys, maybe 2 or 3 tips that you might have for brands and how to work with influencers, anything that
Yeah.
will help these guys kind of zero in on what they should be doing.
Definitely. It's going to be time consuming to find the right people. Where your strategy should focus most is the research and really finding that right voice for your brand. So that's going to take the most amount of time, or it should. And if you do that properly, the rest of your campaign is going to go so much smoother. So find the right tools to help be able to dissect that and save your time. It is time consuming. Some companies are going in and they're tracking, daily an influencer and their views and how they're rising and falling, and, just get a technology to do it. That's really important.
Okay.
And then, it's ultimately, it's a hard space to be in. And so making sure that you are not necessarily just going after what would be the trending person, but dive into those mid-tier influencers. So we always recommend those, that area to be in.
Got it.
Yeah.
Got it.
Those are the biggest things. Oh, the last thing
Uh-huh.
is don't necessarily worry about scripting the influencer. Give them brand guidelines and get them to give you a proposal. That's actually where we've seen the magic happen.
Very cool.
Right?
Yeah.
So we like to say, look at the influencer as the art director and the brand or product as the co-star. So, a lot of the time they're brilliant marketers. I've seen influencers where they're understanding their audience so well, they're looking at the data, they're creating content, they're adjusting. So they really know what's going to work and what's not going to work. And as long as you're working with them in a partnership alongside them, it can be a beautiful masterpiece if you let them be the creatives that they are and help alongside that.
That's really neat, right? Like a completely different take on, because brand people, we get very tunnel vision on what our product is, and these guys, they just know their audiences,
Absolutely.
right? So,
and we're working with a lot of agencies on helping them shift because they're used to having the control of the content. Yeah. And it's a scary place to be in, but if it's done properly, you have the right strategies alongside, you can get something like 30 million views in 3 weeks. So
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. I love it. Great. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us.
This is so much fun.
Yeah.
It's great.
Hey, Habaneros, thank you for joining us. We had Taylor Click from IVVI, or Ivy, with us today, and she was just full of so much information that is so great for us to use. So a couple of things to recap. Think about influencer marketing, how important it is, and how the trends are really moving towards having influencers help you tell your story and move the consumer towards your brand. The other things to think about, the good news for brands and influencers is that size doesn't really matter. You can be a super large influencer, but the truth is the real ROI is in the mid-tier and micro influencers. These are the guys that are going to really move your business forward. And things to think about. So as you are building your business with these guys, remember to keep in mind that if you work the influencers' goals into your goals, they should be the same. And when you do that, you're going to get a really great experience and a really great business relationship with those guys. And again, as you're thinking about influencers, come to Hubba. Hubba's got a lot of influencers, both micro and mid-tier influencers that you'll be able to leverage. And then the last thing is to keep in mind that YouTube is this emerging channel. Lots of really great analytics, as you heard from Taylor. It is going to be a channel that's going to help drive your business and make it pop. So, keep all this teaching in mind. Keep your analytics in your bullseye, because you're going to need that stuff to be able to grow your business. So thank you for Taylor. We're so excited that you could join us today. There's lots and lots in this. If you have any other questions, make sure you head to www.hubba.com. So you can check out more. You can come here to find influencers. You can ask us questions about influencers. You can pretty much ask us anything you want. We will answer you. So thanks for joining us.